right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna paint up some jigs for some white bass that I'm gonna be tying here in a little bit. What I'm using is white Protect powder paint that I got from Jason Brummel. I've already got it flowing, got it moving. I'm using a new color I got from him. It's called Dragonfly. And I'm gonna be using a 1/8 ounce number 4 steel head hook. And I got these jig heads from Limits Tackle out of Texas. Look him up. Be careful with those hooks. Unbendable, unbreakable. If you're using braid and you got that hook on, you could have a pretty bad day. Just saying, get a hold of Steve at Limits Tackle. Tell him I sent you. Tell him you're looking for the minnow style 1/8 ounce number 4 sickle hook or steel head hooks. Jason Brummel, Jason's Tackle for all my paint. But we're gonna heat these up for about 2 or 3 seconds. We're gonna dip them into white. We're gonna sprinkle a little bit of this Dragonfly color on them. And get my torch turned on. And you can't really see the tip of the torch, but what I got it on is like a low medium, kind of medium. We're gonna heat it up for about 2-3 seconds, and then we're gonna put them in a toaster oven and cure them. But we're gonna two-tone these jig heads. We're gonna keep the top white, and we're gonna keep the bottom this Dragonfly blue. I want the nose, I want half of that jig head white and the other half blue. Blue on the bottom, white on top. And there's 2 ways you can do that. You can sprinkle it on like that, or we can actually kind of dip them in both. I kind of like the way the sprinkle looks, but I'll show you how else you can do it. Take a pair of hemostats, clip them right over top the eyelet, clamp it down nice and tight. That'll keep the paint from getting inside the eye. Heat it up for 2-3 seconds. Dip it into white. While it's still warm, just slowly stick it down inside that blue. And you end up with 2-tone jig head also. And that actually don't look too bad. We're gonna do the next one the exact same way. Right over top the eye, pair of hemostats. You don't need shrink tubing. Flip it on nice and tight. Heat it up. Just till you see it starting to get real shiny looking. Put it in your paint. Shake the excess off. Dip it down in your blue. And you've got a perfectly 2-tone jig head. So let's heat these up in the oven. Let's move them over to the tying station. Let's get them tied up and see how they come out. This is gonna be one of those jigs where they're pretty. And I'm gonna get those comments that say, well, that jig's made to catch fishermen, not fish. And I'll explain to you that misconception, why that's true and why that's not true. So give me a few seconds. Let me get everything switched over, get these cured, heat them up, and then we will tie it up. We're gonna call it Dragonfly, the White Bass Special. Okay, so we moved this jig back over to the vise. We got it ready, we got it heated up. The heat process on these, I said 250 in 15 minutes. That is not what Protect recommends. Protect recommends 350 for, I want to say 25 minutes. I don't do it quite as long. The only real reason I put it back in the oven is just kind of help the paint blend a little bit more, help it kind of soak into each other, and let the paint set up. The cure process, I don't go through the whole cure process anymore because I use UV resin. I'll get this whole jig tied up. I'll put some eyes in it. I'll go back over, I'll UV resin coat it, and the UV resin coat, plus with the little bit of time I did in the toaster oven, will help keep this jig head solid. It'll help keep that paint from knocking off, flaking off. Excuse me, it'll also give it a really good shiny look to it too. But what we're gonna do, we're gonna type a jig that's got a lot more flash, more so than action. Being that these are going to be used for white bass, they're not going to be sitting in one spot, jigging this jig up and down, just cast, retrieve, cast, retrieve, cast, retrieve. So I want a sleek looking jig with a lot of flash in it that's going to get a white bass's attention. So like I said before, we've got an 1/8 ounce minnow style jig head with the number 4 steel head hook. The steel head hook is specifically to keep it from getting all bent up when you're fishing for white bass. If you've caught 30, 40 white bass off one jig with a light wire hook, you know what it does. They'll trash that hook. So we put our Sally Hansen's on, got our glue on our shafts. We're going to use a white Vivas 200 denier thread. We're going to go pretty heavy thread wise on this jig. So we're going to start right here behind the head. Going to wrap it all the way to the point of the hook. And we've got a good base to work off of. We've got a good wide jig head, so we can put a lot of material into this jig and not have to worry about it building up too much, wanting to go over the top of the head and all that. We're going to put some blue flash in it. We're going to do some in the middle, and then we're probably going to do some on the outside also. But I'm going to pinch it off just like I would if I was pinching off the bucktail. Pull off about that much, lay it on there, make sure you got enough to go on the shank of the hook and then off the back too, so that and your material is all going to match up. And we're going to be tying this with bucktail. You got about that much flash. No specific measurement, nothing like that. I just pinch off what feels right. Gonna wrap it all the way up. And I apologize, I got the squeaky bobbin. I should have adjusted it before I started, but we're just gonna go with it. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Okay, we got a two-tone jig head. We got blue on the bottom, we got white on top, and we're gonna match the material just exactly like we got the jig head painted. Blue bucktail. And you can do this whatever your favorite white bass color is. Mine's always been white, blue, chartreuse white. But I wanted to use that dragonfly paint. I like the sparkle in it, I like the color in it, and that's why I've gone with that. So pinch off about as much bucktail as we kind of did with the flash. Make sure all your ends are trimmed. Get it all nice and even. Pinch back onto it, pull out all your loose hairs. Pull out your loose hairs from that end too. Lay that bucktail right there on the shank of that hook. Loose wraps until you know you got it where you want it at. And then we're gonna make our tightening wrap from the bottom side up. That's gonna keep that bucktail from wanting to spin when you wrap it. Go right down to the point of the hook. Let's go back up. Now, sometimes when you're tying bucktail and you're gonna be putting a lot of bucktail in it, it don't hurt to get it to this point and go ahead and glue your next layer on. So we're gonna get our Sally Hansen's out again. We're gonna brush it right there on the top of that thread, and then we're gonna cut us some white bucktail to go on top of that. That's our white. We'll come down here. We're gonna pinch off. See here, about that much. Just, you'll know it. Start out with less and add to it. Don't start out with too much and have to take away from it. Always go less when you're tying with bucktail to start out with. Go less, you can add to it. Go more, it's a pain in the butt to try to get it off of it. So we're gonna push it right down on the shank of the hook also. Same way as we did with the blue. Loose wraps until you know you got it to where you want it at. I want all that hair to fall right down the middle of that hook. Then we're gonna do our tight wraps from the bottom up. And go wrap as far down as you did with your blue. And then come back up. And you're not gonna have to worry about this material spinning, sliding, coming undone since you've got 2 layers of glue on it. Flip it over, take it out. Check it out, make sure you got it the way you want it. We're gonna put it right back in the vise. Now I'm gonna even put a little bit more flash in it. I'm gonna put some flash in it this time that's a little bit wider and a little bit thicker. We're gonna go 3 pieces on this bottom side. And I'm sorry, I don't know the exact size of this flash. That's what we're gonna add to it on this side. And that will reflect the colors of that material you've tied into that jig. I'm gonna lay it right there, kind of off to the side. and I'm gonna let my thread kind of pull it over to the top. And if you want to add a little more layer of glue right here on top of this, it's definitely not gonna hurt nothing. So we're gonna get that all nice and tight, good and snug, and then we're gonna go with our chenille. So that's what you got. See all that flashing at? That's a white bass catching machine right there. So here's our chenille. It's as flashy as that flash we just tied in. So we're gonna start right here behind the head because we've got a pretty good void there we can still fill. If I'd already been starting to get it filled up, I'd start my chenille back here at the back and then just a couple wraps and then work my way back up. But we're gonna start right here, right at behind the head, and we're gonna tie it on. Bring it back up. Move our bobbin down out of the way so we can wrap it. A little more glue right here. White bass will demolish a jig if it's not held together right. If you want to test your jigs, go out and throw them at some white bass. It'll tell you exactly what your jigs are made of. Okay, so now we're gonna start wrapping. We're gonna build it up thick. We're gonna let it all kind of overlap some. We're gonna pull it back, move it over, keep it moving. Go to the other side of your thread. Now we're gonna go ahead and tie it all down. Pull your chenille over one more time. Give some good wraps, just like that. And we're gonna trim that chenille off. We're gonna whip finish, we're gonna put some eyes in it, and eyes are totally optional on this jig. If you wanna put eyes in it, put it in there. If you don't, don't. I'm doing it just because I want just a little bit more contrasting flash color in it. It's the only reason the eyes are going in this jig. So we're gonna reach up here, we're gonna cut that thread off. And when I say contrasting color, I mean I want something that's kind of off from the rest of it. We're gonna go with the red eye. Got my tweezers. And we're gonna take an eye out of that package, and this is the only thing I use those tweezers for, is pull that plastic back. And I'm gonna find an eye that fits that socket. Sometimes getting these eyes to stick to that powder paint turns out to be a pain, but it seems like the more higher quality of the eyes I get, the easier they're gonna stick on. So we're gonna put one more on this side, and then we're gonna resin coat it. Then we're gonna throw it in the UV box. And I'll show you what I got when I'm talking about contrasting colors. That is how that jig turns out. That is a pretty flashy jig. The first comments I will get about this jig is that jig's made to catch fishermen. It's not made to catch fish. You're wrong and you're right. If I tie a jig and it don't appeal to my customers, or it don't appeal to you, you're probably not going to buy it. I've never tied a jig or come up with the color of a jig to think it's going to sell and it's not going to catch fish. I have never done that. I don't do that. Every jig I tie, I can see them catching crappie under the right conditions. It depends on the conditions. So yes, this jig is made to catch fishermen, and it's made to catch fish also. If I tie a crappy looking jig and it's horrible looking, it's awful looking, you're not going to buy it. You're not going to want it. And even if you did get it, you're not going to have confidence in it. You're not going to fish it, and chances are you're not going to catch fish with it. So to answer that question, they're made to catch both. And I tied this jig because I like that jig. I like the color of the jig. I like the color scheme of the jig. I like the flashiness of it, and I like the functionability of it. I like the red eye along with the shiny, super flashy body. But that's why that jig is the color it is. It's because I sold myself on it before I caught a crappie with it or a white bass with it. And we're gonna take our UV resin, we're gonna brush it right over top that eye, over the head. We're gonna push it down inside that neck also, because that UV light's gonna cure the UV resin that's on that thread. And then I'm gonna set it up just a little bit with my flashlight. And that's just to make sure it's not going to run, it's not going to drip or anything like that. So that is our white bass killer, the Dragonfly. Super shiny, super simple, super effective. You know, you could tie this with whatever color you want. You could have used white and chartreuse, could have used silver and red. I chose blue and white. That's my favorite white bass color. But that's what we got. The jig made to catch fish and fishermen. But that is all I got. I'm on, well, tell you what, let's do this here too. We're gonna take this jig and we're gonna put it in the UV box. And I've already got some jigs sitting in there that are curing. So let's mosey over here and let's look at my UV setup. That is what I got. This is an old tackle box with UV lights wired inside of it. Got a fan wired inside. I tie my jigs, I put the UV resin on, I hang them in there. It'll hold up to 100 jig heads, probably 120 if you stagger them in there right. I UV resin coat them, I throw them in there, and I just leave them until everything's done, take them back out, package them up. But that's how my UV resin box works. I've got 3 lights, which was an overkill. I really probably only needed 2. There's a fan wired inside of it just to keep the warmer air out. It's got aluminum chrome tape paper stuck to the back of it to help reflect it. Pull it up, lock it all up, and that's how my UV resin box works. I was getting some videos on that. I got a couple more being made, but that is all I got. You got any questions, comments, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button and let you know when I got another video up. We'll get the boat out this weekend. I'm gonna try to get some kind of good footage out of that boat. Being springtime in Missouri, every single time I go, the wind is blowing 30 miles an hour. I've had to cut out a lot of footage. I've been working on it, camera angles and all that stuff, but be looking for those videos. They're coming up pretty soon. See you guys, thank you.